With a Kaibo juice gang ready to roll. Grab your paddles, let the good times flow. From the great white north to the wild unknown, we take the best canoe trips, make memories we own. Under the stars by the campfire light, we sing our songs and we laugh all night. With our trusty canoes, we explore the land. Every river, every lake, with the Kaibo juice gang. So grab a paddle and join us on the ride, singing songs side by side. Navigate the waters, laugh and cheer. In the great outdoors, the Kaibo juice gang is here.
Hi, welcome back to Kaibo Juice, where we talk shit about all things backcountry. Today is going to be a special show because what we are going to do is talk about all the tips and tricks that we like to do when we are on our trips. For those just joining in, we've been doing this for about 20 years. We go on 10-day trips with 6 to 8 guys, and we've learned a few things over the years.
Both good and bad.
Both good and bad. Joining me again is Adam, one of my regular crew members and one of my close friends. And I think the best way to start this, I know you haven't seen this list at all.
I haven't seen the list.
Is out of everything we do, what is your number one favorite thing that we do as a hack?
As a hack?
Well, that's what we're doing. Tips, tricks, hacks. What's your favorite thing that we do when we are on our sites or on our trips or preparing for our trips, getting ready for our trips, out there on our trips? After the trips,
there's so many things that we learn trip after trip, and we're consistently improving upon it. But I guess one of the great things that I think that we do when we're on site is the first thing we have to do is set up a community rain tarp.
Okay, but that's not a hack, tip, or trip. That's a given. Okay. Setting up a tarp is a given on a trip because it could rain at any moment. You always want to be dry underneath it, right?
All right, so help me out here a bit, Ryan. What are we looking at for tips and tricks?
All right, one of my favorite things that we ever did was when we started, we always bring those metal, tin, aluminum plates. We started bringing paper plates as tray liners, as plate liners, which allowed us, after dinner was over, to just pick up the plate and throw it on the roaring campfire and have very minimal dishes to clean up.
Okay, so being the generally agreed upon dishwashing guy on most of the trips, which is me, I gotta tell you something, right? I really don't like your metal plates and your metal pans. This is something that
they're rigid and sturdy.
And so is Chinette.
Chinette are not as rigid and sturdy. If they get wet, they will still drip in your lap.
When I had to, on the first few trips, when you guys ate the eggs and all the other things that turn into cement and just stick to these aluminum plates and then putting the liner helps, but it would do a whole lot better than if we just get rid of them altogether and go with just a stiffy plate.
I don't agree. I honestly don't agree. I think you need the stiff plate for rigidity. Rigidity? Is that a word?
It is now.
For the rigidness of it. Because if you have something wet in the plate, remember, we eat these in our lap. We're not sitting at a table. We eat these in Helinox chairs with my legs crossed with it in my lap.
And I can tell you that the engineers and product development managers at Chinette have developed plates that are rigid and don't absorb the liquids.
That are paper?
And are hard paper, and they work. And I think all we have to do is just give it a try.
Okay. Going with that, the other reason I like these plates that we bring, the tin plates, the aluminum plates, is because we stopped bringing pot lids. And I use those as the pot lid, and then I put the spoon on top of the plate, and then it doubles as a plate when we're finished cooking.
Agreed, and fair enough. You also use it as a bellows to fan the fire.
I also use it to fan the fire. That is correct.
So
you could bring a Frisbee for that too, but I like using the plate for that.
Great. So the answer to the question is that you want to bring items that are multitaskers. You don't want to bring single tasked items.
Right. So burning of the plates at the end of the meal is 100% my number one.
Being the guy that had to clean those plates, I appreciate the paper plates. I still think we can improve upon that with Chinette.
All right. The next thing while we're on this is wooden spoons and chopsticks. People don't think about this. We make a pasta, we make stir fries with chicken on the first night. I love the wooden spoon. Once I'm finished cooking, into the fire
Right
it
into the
goes.
fire.
Chopsticks, with chopsticks come in a sleeve, those takeout chopsticks, great fire starter. If you can't get a fire start going, great for mixing soups, great for everything. Burnable at the end of the less weight.
I couldn't agree more. So here comes a contentious issue, and I'm going to bring it up right here, right now. And if we could put a survey and people can vote on what they think is better, I would appreciate it if this can be part of our podcast. Ronnie, we had a trip this year
People
where
can comment on the YouTube channel.
comments whether you think I'm right or whether you think there's a better way. On this trip that we just went on this past time, we had one of our participants complain bitterly complaining that we did not bring enough ketchup, right? The guy likes ketchup. All right. What can you do? You got Ronnie brings enough ketchup. He puts it into a little mini squeeze bottle.
I bring it into those squeeze travel tubes that you
Travel
get
tubes,
for
but
different liquids. Or
Who knew this guy just inhales ketchup?
I put the oil in
Okay.
that sometimes. I put
Suggestion,
ketchup, mustard.
tips and tricks. All right. Everybody has in their junk drawer at home a gazillion packets of McDonald's ketchups and mustards and soy sauces and hot sauces.
Those are
and
only
all
good if
sorts
you're
of-
going to burn them.
You're not you after you use them, you're going to burn them.
Oh, they're plastic. A lot of people are going to complain about that. I know it's nothing in the grand scheme of things, but people there are adamant about not burning.
Do you see what some countries in the world burn?
I
compared to what we
agree
do?
with you on that.
Okay.
To me, it's a
So
needle in a haystack.
My
in the grand
tip,
scheme.
my tip would be to do this. Put all of those condiment packets into a large Ziploc bag, put it at the bottom of your food barrel. When somebody wants their ketchup, they go into the condiment bag, they pull out their packet or two of ketchup or hot sauce or mustard or whatever it
We
is.
do it with sugar. That's how we bring our sugar.
100%. And that would be easier. You're only using what you want. You can burn the garbage when you're
Whatever. I
done.
could just bring a bigger container of ketchup. But you know what I'm going to do next year, just to be an ass? I'm going to bring No Name. All right. So
Let us know. Let us know if my idea holds water, if my idea is better than filling up another tube of ketchup.
all right, my next favorite trick especially for new campers is to put a glow stick over the Kaibo or the Thunderbox or the treasure chest, whatever you want to call it. In provincial parks that we have here in Ontario, there are Kaibos. There are latrines. For new campers, they're usually way back in the woods. Put a glow stick over the Kaibo and crack it when it's dusk, and it makes it a lot easier to find it in the dark. It also makes it a lot less scary for kids or people that are new to the experience.
And I'm going to add to that. So first of all, for campers who have not gone out, your first couple of nights out on a canoe trip, you're introducing your body to filtered, but untreated filtered water. You're eating different types of foods at different times, and don't think that it's not going to, for many people, it's going to play some havoc on your gut. And going to the bathroom,
Never have that problem.
for a lot of people, it does.
Yeah.
Right. Going to the bathroom in the middle of the night is absolutely a daunting task. So I would add to that.
Also, a lot of people are freaked out about the darkness of the woods. The glow stick just takes that edge off a little.
It certainly
You
does.
see it out
But
there.
you also have to light up what Ronnie does as well. He puts a couple by the actual Kaibo, but he puts it on there. There's a trail that leads from usually where the tents are to the Kaibo. There's a little trail that's
I do that with
over
kids.
time.
I do that with kids. But make sure in the morning, what I buy a 10-pack of those glow stick necklaces.
Mm-hmm.
And then what you want to do is in the morning is you get rid of the glow stick. I'll always take it off and put on the next one for the next evening if we're on the same site. And then I just throw it in the bottom of the barrel when I'm done with it.
I saw a video from another bunch of campers where they actually bought dollar store fairy lights that are battery operated, and those work just as well. And you can just hang them and take them down, put them up again.
You could, but if they go out, they go out. The glow stick's not going out.
The fairy lights draw very little power from one AAA battery, and you can just turn them on and off. It's just very, very easy to do.
All right. Speaking about the Kaibo, my next tip is and then we always have done this, we bring a cheap dry bag and we put our toilet paper and a small spade and our soaps in that dry bag. And when we get to the campsite, the soaps come out and the toilet paper in the dry bag, 2 rolls, goes on the lid of the Kaibo. And that way, no one's ever looking for it. It's always there. And I'm always yelling at people to make sure that it's shut. And everyone seems to respect that rule.
Yeah, unfortunately, we one time had to learn the hard way when someone forgot to put the paper back into the dry bag, and a storm happened, and then the next guy that had to go to the washroom had to be presented with unfortunate wet wipes, which is another and it's just not like, yeah, it's kind of pleasant, but it's, you know, you want to have your TP ready to go right there when you need it when you're on your camping
The other
trip.
thing is, when we're traveling in the canoes, we always have that available. It's always in that dry bag, and I have a pink one, so it stands out. I always make sure to buy pink. Do you notice that? It's always been a pink dry bag. At Dollarama, they have pink dry bags, plastic dry bags.
Well, you're laughing, but Ronnie, that's indicative of a larger situation. For those campers that decide they're going to buy black, green, or camouflage dry bags, what are you thinking?
Yeah.
You're going to lose your bags in the forest.
That's a great tip.
You know,
I don't buy anything those colors.
You know,
my poncho is, but it's got
neon
yellows
yellow,
in it.
neon pink,
Neon orange.
and you never
orange.
lose your dry
Right.
bags.
Everything I buy is pink, orange, yellow,
100%.
neon. That's
I never understood. Like, yeah, it looks cooler, but
my late brother-in-law, I'll never forget, I got a poncho and I bought a brown one, and he goes, "Look at the camo one I got." Do you remember that trip? We spent 3 times on portages. We spent looking for it because he put it down somewhere. Never buy camouflage anything. All your ropes, neons, yellows,
100%,
oranges,
100%.
reds, whatever. Just don't get like greens, browns.
that has to
blacks.
be like, if there's going to be, we're going to go through a whole lot of tips and tricks here, but that's got to be top 10.
Right. You told me one this year. I'm actually right. I'm going to be crossing these off as we go. You taught me one this year, and I just did it on my last trip 2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
2 weeks ago. That was amazing. And that was, I brought a mesh bag.
Laundry bag.
And I brought a mesh laundry bag, and all the clean dishes
Listen to
went
this.
into that and hung from a tree and air dried all the dishes. They got to drip out of the bag. And usually we would put them down on a tarp or whatever. They would always stay wet. Amazing tip. I thank you so much for that one. My wife liked that too. All right. Next one. This is a big one for us in the sense that we go and we fish and we do 4 fish dinners on our 9-day trips. What I do is I scour Home Depot.
It's just the cleaning the fish, the board.
And I get a piece of plywood that I cut into a fillet board that fits into our backpack, flat, takes up no room. I pre-drill a hole, and then on the nights that we catch fish, I hammer a spike through the hole that I can position the fish on it through the cheeks, and I clean my fish that way because I got tired of cleaning it on the bottom of a canoe. The wooden plank makes all the difference in the world, and at the end of the trip, we burn it. I make sure I clean it off in the lake every night, and I leave it covered in sand or in the lake or somewhere far away from the campsite because it smells like fish. It usually air dries, and then we take it with us. But on the last night, we burn it. It goes right into the campfire.
Perfect. That's a great tip.
That's my favorite. It's saved me so many times having that fillet board on our trips. All right. The next thing I do is when we're traveling, I always wear water shoes with a pair of socks. That's how I portage. But what I do is I put my shoes, a fresh pair of socks, a small microfiber towel in a dry bag, in a 10-liter dry bag, and that I clip to my backpack. And then when we get to the campsite and I've had wet feet all day, the first thing I do is take off my water shoes and my socks and hang them up, and I put on my fresh pair of shoes, my hikers, and the pair of socks that I'm going to be wearing that evening so that I can go collect firewood. I don't like digging through my packs and everything. And when I get to a campsite, I like having my shoes ready to go. I always have that extra dry bag with my pair of shoes in it.
So this isn't just about having a good pair of shoes, just both dry and wet shoes, but having quick accessibility.
Quick accessibility to it when you get to the site if you've been portaging all day.
And why wearing the site? You don't mind wearing wet socks with your wet shoes?
When I'm portaging?
When you're portaging.
I don't get blisters that way. I always wear a pair of socks.
What kind of socks do you have? Do you have wool socks or
I just
cotton
wear
socks?
cotton. It eliminates the blisters.
Done.
just a pair of like tennis socks, those low cut ankle socks. And then that I get rid of them. They're usually filthy, and I will burn those.
Can I give you guys another kitchen hack, a kitchen tip?
Cotton burns easily, no plastics, nothing. It's 100% cotton.
I got one that you're not going to have on this list. I guarantee you're not going to have it on this list, but I did it once on a trip when I went with my wife and her accountant friends. But everybody at home has one, or your grandmother has one. It's an old you hang it over a door. There's a hook on it. There's like a hanger hook on it, and it's like a rectangle, and you put your shoes inside it. Like there's 20 different compartments to put your shoes in.
Oh yeah, I have one. I used to have one of those.
And you put that over by your kitchen area, and you can put all your utensils, all your tools.
You're talking about one of those like fabric things with all the shoe slots that you can roll up.
And you hold it on and put it in.
That's great if you're going. I don't know about backcountry camping so much, but if you're camping and you're doing car camping, or if you're doing like just campsite camping,
this is in the theme.
That's a great addition.
It's a theme of easy accessibility, because the one thing from our trips, Ronnie, that drives me crazy is that how often do you hear, where's the this, where's the that? Oh, it's here, it's in this barrel, it's in that barrel, it's in the olive barrel, it's in the blue barrel, it's in the supply barrel. And everybody has to spend time rummaging through your barrels. And then when you want to get something, everything's been turned inside out and you don't know where your stuff is in.
But this is the next tip, is always bring a small tarp. So this year, I always bring one of these tarps, just a small 2x6 or 3x6 or whatever it is. 2x6, I think. It cost me $2 at a dollar store. And what I do is I keep that in by the food barrel or whatever. And every time I'm emptying a barrel looking for something, I just spread out the tarp, and then I'll put everything on the clean tarp so that it's not touching the ground. And then back in the barrel it goes.
Good tip.
The other thing about that small tarp is you can use it to cover the firewood at night. We always hang up a big tarp. You can always bring it in, but sometimes if there's weather, I'll just throw that tarp over. But for the most part, I keep a very tiny tarp in the food barrel or in our supply barrel, just to be able to take stuff out and not put it on the ground. Which brings us to the next tip of what I like to do, is bring a canoe up to the campsite, to the area where we're at with the fire pit and everything, turn it upside down, put it on 2 logs. We always find 2 stumps or whatever in the forest, and then you have a table. And we've put everything on that upside down canoe. It's funny because I got that tip from an old book on Algonquin Park, where I saw the group of 7 sitting around a canoe having lunch that was overturned. Because remember something about the group of 7, not only were they phenomenal artists, they were ridiculously experienced outdoorsmen.
How could you not be?
Right. They were going to Algoma when it was like, when roads were...
There was no roads.
They were taking the train, and I don't even understand how they got to some of the places that they got.
Crazy.
But they were eating lunch. It was Tom Thompson, A.Y. Jackson. They were eating lunch around an overturned canoe, and ever since I saw that, for like 10 years, I've been turning over a canoe on our campsites.
A.Y. Jackson. Shout out to my alma mater. Yeah. A.Y. Jackson.
We went to A.Y. Jackson Secondary School, and A.Y. Jackson was eating lunch sitting around an overturned canoe.
Homage to A.Y.
We do that on every campsite, and we put everything on it. It works wonders when you don't have tables out.
Smile on my face is because on one of the first trips I went with Ronnie, we overturned the canoes. This was Chiniguchi. And we did the loop of Chiniguchi, and it was one of the most magnificent trips we've ever done. And at a certain point in time, the overturned canoes turned into our makeshift bar for the night, and we put our bottles on there, our plastic bottles, and we made and our mixed drinks, and we went there and we picked up what we needed to. So that's the big smile on my face is just the memories of Chiniguchi and the overturned canoe bar.
Yeah. Okay, going on. The next tip is, when you are packing for a trip, only account for 3 days of perishables unless you have something amazing like a Yeti cooler.
What do you mean by that?
Most standard coolers will only handle our meat for 3 days, or our perishables. So we always bring like steaks, chicken. We do a stir fry on the first night. We bring bacon. We bring eggs. We bring everything along those lines. Freeze. First of all, the vacuum sealer is your best friend. If I can have any tip whatsoever for people that want to get into backcountry camping, it's get yourself a vacuum sealer. I use my vacuum sealer like so much that it's I go through bags like crazy when we're packing for out there. Ingredients, I freeze all my meat beforehand. I put all the meat into the vacuum sealers beforehand. Remember, a lot of times where we're going, we're not bringing bottles and cans, so I vacuum seal it all, right? Coffee that we're like, we fill up one coffee tin, the rest of the coffee I vacuum seal into individual portions for those tins. I vacuum seal everything. But once we vacuum seal all our meat for the 3 days, our turkey, our hot dogs, anything that can be frozen, I freeze. And that acts as your ice packs. So as they thaw out, they are cooling everything, and we've never had a problem on our trips for the first 3, 4 days. By the 6th day, things are getting a little warm from it being open and closed all the time.
But by that time, it's
Right, but by that time, we're really only digging in there for margarine or for coffee creamer.
which we can add to that one is that one of the things is how do we take our coffee on the trip? And usually, when we take our coffee, a lot of guys like to drink it black, or a lot of guys like to have some Baileys put in their coffee.
We always bring Baileys.
Baileys is like one of our favorite
And
things.
that goes to our next one, which is put everything into plastic flasks.
Okay,
is that what you were going to
no,
say?
No. We can get there too, but how do you do your milk? How do you bring milk and keep milk fresh on a 9-day canoe trip when you have cereal and oatmeal and coffees?
Well,
and
that's okay. So going what I said, all of our alcohol goes into plastic flasks. Our maple syrup goes into plastic flasks. I have kids in university. I make them save their plastic flasks. I say to them, every time you guys are having a party and people are bringing over vodka bottles, we call them Mickeys here in Canada, plastic Mickeys, save those for me. I rinse them all out. I put a piece of green tape on it, like painter's tape. I mark what it is, and we use those for all our booze. All of our maple syrup goes in that. And then when one of them are empty, I make our powdered milk in one of those.
There's what I was looking for. We make our milk.
We make our milk. You bring powdered milk. I bring a small funnel so you can pour it. And we put it in the plastic flask. We make it fresh every morning. We do not have to freeze our refrigerate our milk. We have had times where we've put them in a mesh bag, going back to the mesh bag, hang that in the lake on a rope, and you can have refrigeration on your milk if you're drinking a lot of it.
Occasionally, we have a little bit of milk left over. We save it for the next day, and invariably, we have a milk tester to make sure that it's still good. It hasn't turned yet. That's our buddy Tall Ron.
Right.
And Tall Ron, is this good? He'll come over, and it doesn't matter if it's good.
But our Irish cream has never gone bad
It's
at the
good.
cooler
It's
back.
good.
Right.
He'll put it in whatever anyway. See, look, it's good. He'll put it in. Take it.
375 milliliter Mickey's, plastic Mickey's. Great friends on your backcountry trip.
I gotta tell you, there's no coffee that beats morning coffee on the canoe trip with a little bit of Baileys in it.
A little bit of Baileys. I fill my cup. All right, listen. It's the sad day is usually on day 7 when the Baileys runs out. I bring like 4 plastic flasks full of Baileys.
You know, we that's like one of our little, we call it a tip or trick, but this is like one thing that's very unique to our trip is that we just really love our Baileys. And we used to also really
We don't even use Baileys. We use O'Casey's, which is a knockoff of Bailey. Whatever. Carol Ann's, whatever.
But we also used to bring a bottle of a Fireball every year for the trip. And this year we didn't even have any Fireball.
No, that's usually for our friend that comes from overseas. He loves it. We bring it for him, but we had enough shivas that we could kill a moose. All right. Which did not come back with us. The bar is usually quite big, but when you're not bringing bottles and cans, it makes it difficult. Put it in plastic flasks. All right, going back to the cooler bag, I said we freeze all our meat. Over the days, everything starts to condensate. My next tip is to always put a sponge in the cooler bag. And the bottom of the cooler bag, I put the sponge. The sponge weighs nothing. It absorbs all the moisture. And you have a sponge on the campsite. If you need one when things get yucky, you want to wipe something down, you got a sponge that can be rinsed off.
So that's what that sponge was for.
That's what the sponge was for. It was for absorbing all the moisture in the cooler bag. All right. The next thing I do, not the next thing I do, one of the things I always do is I bring a large canteen to fill everyone's bottles. When we are launching and we are leaving the car, there is always one idiot that did not fill their water bottle. Oh, wait, I didn't fill my water bottle. We're launching on a 9-day trip. We have not made water. We're about to be going for 8 hours that day? Yeah. And there's always one fool who did not load their. I always bring a canteen that I leave in the car, a large canteen that I fill with water just for that one guy or 2 guys or 3 guys or top ups or whatever to fill their water bottles before we launch.
Present company included?
Why, did you forget to fill your water this year?
Of course.
Okay, so you're the idiot. All right. What's our favorite tip on the tip and trick for bugs?
Oh, for bugs is we bathe with a really stinky soap called
Carbolic soap.
carbolic soap.
You can never remember the word of
I
that.
said carabolic, but it's not carabolic. It's carbolic soap.
To me, carbolic soap is the only thing that should come on a trip. It's an antiseptic, it's a deodorant, and mosquitoes don't like it. And I've proven with it. I've proven it when I've gone to fishing lodges and I've come out of the shower house and guys are standing there getting eaten alive, and I'm standing there in a towel and they're not even coming near me. Now, the secret is to start bathing with it a few days or even weeks before. And some Caribbean countries supposedly still wash up with this before surgery. It's orange. You hated the smell when I first
Oh,
started bringing it.
it's
I love
I
it.
still don't like it.
I love it. When you have scrapes or anything like cuts, nicks, scrapes, it actually is like an antiseptic for it. I find that after we bathe with it, that my skin is a little tingly. Like I
I
love
gotta
it.
share something with you because also on the trip when we take our baths in the lake at the nighttime and carbolic soap is
100% biodegradable.
biodegradable. Ronnie also brings a bar of it's shampoo. It looks like soap, but it's not soap. It's shampoo. It's your bar of shampoo, and then we go in.
Another 100% all
We do.
natural,
However,
biodegradable.
I wasn't given that memorandum about the other one being shampoo, and I didn't want to use it, so I shampooed using carbolic soap this trip. And guess what?
No bugs.
Forget the bugs. My hair has never been so naturally smooth, and
Really?
I was
It was
out.
good on your hair?
Oh my God! Anybody out there that really wants a shine and a beautiful luster to their hair, carbolic soap,
All right. It's anti-mosquito. That's why I started bringing
and the
it.
mosquitoes will stay
If it
away.
has other benefits, that's great. All right. Bike gloves for paddling.
It's a given.
I was just on a trip with so many people. None of them were wearing bike gloves. I always wear bike gloves. I keep them in my cargo pants pocket. I put them on the trip. They're great when I'm hauling stuff out.
Our daily paddles are anywhere between 2 to 4 hours of paddling in the lake,
Yeah.
our daily paddles. And if you don't think that that's going to cause you some blisters, think again. We paddle and you're moving your hands and the skin moves and you gotta wear gloves.
Right. All right. Next thing I like to do is print and laminate the maps. Instead of bringing a full map that I'm unraveling on the trip, I will take a section of that map.
Hmm.
I will print it out at 8.5 by 11, 11 by 17. I go to Staples. I pay $3 to have them printed out in full color.
Yeah.
And then I go to Dollarama and I buy the laminating film and I laminate the maps, and every one of the canoes gets a
Every canoe
laminated
gets a
map.
map. Yep.
I also laminate the menu of what we'll be eating for 9 days. I have it totally like I make a spreadsheet of everything we're
It's on
doing.
the underside
I
of the lid of the
laminate
barrel.
that and I duct tape it to the bottom of the food barrel. And then we've never had to miss an ingredient or know what we were eating because it's right there for all to see on the bottom of the barrel.
It's a
And
great tip, and it's a little bit of OCD there for you.
it's OCD, but I love doing
But
it.
you know what?
If you
Being
look
on a
at some of
trip,
our trip pictures, you'll see photos
we've
of
never
it.
gone hungry on any one of Ronnie's trips, and all of our meals have been like 5 star. Like he would get a Michelin star if they came in this us.
All right. Next tip. Shower curtain rings. I always bring shower curtain rings.
What can't a shower curtain ring and duct
Shower
tape
curtain
mix?
rings are lightweight carabiners. People don't seem to understand that. I hang my tent light with a shower curtain ring in my tent. You know, it's got the little like loop.
Yep.
I hang my shoes on a clothesline, like through the loops on to air dry on carabiner on shower curtain rings. I've used it in so many instances. I've used it to attach the tarp when it's blowing to the rope line at
Yeah.
night. Like shower curtain rings, I keep 2 in my fanny pack, and then I've got about 5 in the supply barrel, and we've used them for multiple purposes over the years.
100%. The moral of the story is be prepared when doing your trip, and anything and everything will and can happen. And having an all encompassing tool like a shower ring or duct tape that will fix 99% of all of your issues or problems or things that have to get fixed is worthwhile. There's nothing that you haven't been able to fix using those two staples.
Right.
If something breaks or you need to get something hung up on, shower curtain rings and duct tape are you going to be too bad. I'll put that one in my top 10 as well.
The other thing I also have is when I'm putting everything away in my closets, I have wire racks and I use the shower curtain rings as carabiners to hang everything, like my knives, I hang them all. I don't have them all in drawers, I just have them all hanging. So they come in a 10 pack for $1.50 for a metal shower curtain ring. I use them for everything. I could
my
write a
gosh.
book on shower curtain rings. One of my favorite things to have out there.
Great tip for trippers.
You've seen me even put things together. You can latch your barrel, lock your barrel with a shower curtain ring. You've seen me repair things using a shower curtain ring, using the little metal.
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
All right.
Sometimes it's like I'm waiting for something to break, so you'll just break out the shower curtain rings.
Yep. All right. Next thing I like is my wife saves all her little makeup cases that she gets, and that's what I use as my toiletries case when I'm out there.
All right, it's a zippable, a little zipper.
Little zipper, like a pencil case.
Okay, so the key to this
And a
is
pencil
that
case is great for your cutlery.
when going on trips, one of the key important something of key importance is to travel light. And traveling light means you can't take your big honking,
Makeup, sorry, not makeup, a toiletries case.
Bag.
Like you take to Vegas.
Like you're going to the store, you're getting the little foldable toothbrush, and you're getting a little bit of toothpaste, a little bit of mouthwash, or the few things that you like to do, and it's got to go
Floss, all the samples you get at the dentist.
You got to get the samples and everything in, and it has to go into something small. So Ronnie uses old makeup cases. I use actually an old airline case, the ones that you get from the airlines.
What is it, tiny?
It's what you saw.
I don't remember. All I know is my makeup case is like 5 inches by 4 inches.
Mine was tiny.
It's a tiny little thing.
But yeah, so when you want to travel light, every square centimeter counts. Every little bit of weight counts on a trip. So good tip and trip.
Yeah, and make sure that you put those in your
carry-on.
You don't keep it in your tent at night. You don't keep it in your backpack. We put them in the supply barrel that goes over by the fire pit.
Mm-hmm.
And the next tip that I want to mention for backcountry camping is everyone wears bear bells. I never even thought about wearing a bear bell. You know those bear bells that you get? People wear them when they walk through. I always thought that the bear bell went onto our cooler bag that goes up the tree and onto our food barrel.
So you can hear if a bear starts taking swipes at it.
Yeah, I always thought it was an alarm system.
That's what I thought.
So people walk with them, but hang bear bells on your food. And that way, in the middle of the night, you have a warning if anything is trying to get into the food. Why do I want to walk on a portage with a bell clanging? I always thought it was an alarm system. You could probably use that in hotel rooms too. Put the bear bell on the door.
That could be an old wife. So I don't know if that actually holds any. I've been on so many trips and we have yet to see a bear.
Right, but we're never worried about bears on the trips that we go to. People worry about bears on sloppy campsites. We do bush trips in the middle of nowhere where nothing has been there in years, so there's no reason for bears to come to our site. But we clean fish on our site. We have food on our site. You never know when something hungry is going to come through. Most of the time, the animals that we're worried about on our trips at night are mice, rodents, like squirrels, and the likes of such. Chipmunks, raccoons. The bear bell just alerts you that something's trying to get into the bag. And we have heard it go off a few times when something's jumped onto the barrel at night.
You know what? And even though we haven't seen them, our entire modus operandi of cleaning up at night and preparing is to avoid bears. It's always top of our mind. Even though we've never seen one, we have not let our guard down in terms of our preparation so that we do not see one on a trip.
Right. I'll never forget the first time when I had a bear in our trip logo. In our crew trip logo, you said, "Why is there a bear? We've never seen a bear." And I say, because we do everything we can to avoid bears on our trips. It's a big part of the trip, which brings us to the next tip of brush your teeth over the fire pit.
We'll spit it out over the fire pit.
Spit it out over the fire pit. Yeah. Spit it into the fire. We don't put the fire out until we're ready to go to bed. Everyone brushes their teeth over the fire pit. No scent on the campsite. You want to gargle with some Listerine or Scope mouthwash, into the fire pit, into the fire, over the embers, right? It's funny how we're there with 6 guys, and 6 guys are brushing their teeth at night, standing around the campfire and spitting onto the
You know,
embers.
it's funny you mentioned that. And now we don't do this, but I read about this one, and I actually read about it on another forum about a week ago. That the same clothing that you wear while preparing dinner should be bagged up and put into a barrel. You should not take that into your
I
tent.
never bring my clothes that I was wearing. Like usually, I smell like campfire smoke at the end of the day. But my socks,
If you're preparing
anything
food,
moist, do not bring that into the
you're
tent.
grilling steaks, you're cooking with oil.
Makes sense.
It's absorbed into your clothes, and you then smell like that food all night long.
Right. And that's exactly what you don't want. Do everything you can to not smell like. That's why I also like my tent site as far away from the fire pit and the food area where we eat as possible. I will go way deep into the woods if I can find a. I don't like when the tent footprint is right beside the campfire.
Yeah.
Also, if it rains and everything gets wet, the last thing you want is your tent near the fire pit. It'll reek, it'll stink, you'll never get that smell out. All right. The next tip is to professionally sharpen your fillet knife. I did it again this year, and it makes all the difference in the world. I take it to a place in town that sharpens my knife professionally for $10, and I've got a surgical instrument when I'm out there. Do not wait until you get out there to find out that you have a dull fillet knife.
Okay, so I like the idea. Now, your good friend Adam, who's doing the podcast with you right now, has taken some lessons and has purchased online a whetstone and has learned how to sharpen a fillet knife. And
I
you-
sharpen my own
and
axe.
yet you will not take me up on the offer to give your knife a
I'll
sharpen.
let you try it. And then if it doesn't come out, I'm going to take it to get professional.
I
sharpened.
have 3 different stones, 3 different grits, and I'll get that to a
All
paper
right,
cutting
done.
quality.
You can sharpen all our knives from now on.
Deal.
Sharpen your knives before you go out.
Sharp
Now
knives.
remember something. We're going to say this again. We are in no way professionals. We've just been doing this for almost 20 years, and we know what we like, and we know things that work, and we know things that don't work. So we do not have all the answers. We're just telling you how we like to do things our way.
Furthermore, we're still learning as we go, and if we like
Always
something,
learning.
like add to the comments. What are your favorite tips and tricks? Maybe we can use one of yours and let you know about it on our next podcast or in the podcast in the future. So we're always willing to learn and try something new.
You just taught me about that mesh bag, and that was amazing. I loved it. All right, next thing what I do when we go out there, if we know there's going to be weather in the forecast, is I hang a tarp over the kaibo
Nothing worse than taking a dump
in the rain. And just the bugs. It also gives you some privacy if you angle it a little bit to the backwards. Like if you're in a provincial park and there are thunder boxes, we call them kaibos, hang a tarp over it, especially when you're with the ladies. They will fully appreciate it. They go to the bathroom 3 times as much as we do, right?
Agreed. Good,
All
good,
right.
good tip. Put that one in my top 10 too.
Hang a tarp over the kaibo?
Tarp over
I
the
only
kaibo.
do it when it's going to rain. All right. These are tips. These are things that we do. They're not necessarily necessities. Canoe seats, stadium seats, those folding seats that we all put in our canoes. I cannot go on a canoe trip now without them.
I have one. I wouldn't go with that one now.
You can lean back when you're paddling. You can use it as a seat on the campsite. I absolutely love it. I put a carabiner on it. My next tip is put a carabiner on everything. Everything that can be carabinered that's loose, you put it, you put a carabiner on it. I put a carabiner on that canoe seat, and when we get to the portage, I hook it onto my bag, and it weighs next to nothing.
Off you go.
Game changer is the canoe seat.
Agreed.
Which brings us to the next one, the canoe sail. Anyone that doesn't have a canoe sail, and these are available for like 35, a canoe or kayak sail. There are plenty of trips where I don't get to use it. I would say that 7 out of 10 trips, I never get to use it. But on the trips that I do, it's amazing. I have gone across lakes. 3 of us in a metal, in an aluminum Grumman, weighing 85 pounds, loaded to the brim, and we've still done 20 kilometers an hour without ever having to put our paddles in the water.
Okay, so I have to give some explanation because I guarantee you some of our listeners out there are thinking canoe sail. They're thinking of like sticking up a mast and a pole and a triangular
We used to do
sail.
that.
we would do a tarp.
That's how we did
and
it at summer camp.
Right. There are actual different types of canoe sails and canoe kites. So you can put a kite up in the air and hold on to it, and the wind will take it. But the canoes that Ronnie has is a large circular.
It's a circular sail that folds down to about how big? The size of a dinner plate.
It folds to a dinner plate, then
and it weighs nothing.
Weighs nothing, and he crafted a system where it can be attached probably with one of your.
I always put a loop curtains on the front of the canoe,
you know, and the bowsman can hold up the and it'll catch wind, and then if the wind is strong and it's in the right direction, all he has to do is sort of just maintain with the ropes.
Yeah, you got to keep the wind in the sail.
You got to keep the wind.
It's kind of like flying a stunt kite a little bit.
And
but oh my God,
the funniest thing about it is that there's a little plastic window in there, so the steersman can see ahead to not hit anything while he's.
We have crossed lakes where it's an hour paddle in half an hour without ever putting our paddles in the water.
Yeah.
And I'm the only one in the stern that's using the paddle as a runner.
Just to steer. No one's paddling.
This to steer. We have a wake coming off the canoe. When there's a good wind to your back, that's like, why paddle when you don't have to? Like, especially on a 9-day trip where you're tired and you got enough other stuff to do. I love that my canoe.
You know, on one of our trips.
Wait, didn't we just? Sorry, go on. Go. What were you gonna say?
I was gonna say one of our first trips. One of our friends, Josh, came with a flat back canoe, and he brought with his outboard motor and a little bit of gas.
That's because one guy backed out at the last minute, and he was going to find himself soloing for a week-long trip.
But you know,
all right. Next hack. We used to make omelets on the first couple of days. We've stopped.
Like an omelet.
I love an omelet, but when you're trying to get out of there, instead of having to clean the frying pan, instead of having to like clean all the dishes and blah blah blah,
and then dishes.
Some of it goes on the ground. This one like wants it with egg yolks. This one wants whites only. Hard boiled the eggs. Easiest thing to do. Scoop up some water in the pot on the from the lake. Hard boil the eggs. No mess. No fuss. Eggshells burned to nothing to ash in the fire pit if it's hot enough. We always do this, and
Brian, you can't compare a hard boiled egg to an omelet. You know, like people like their omelets.
I want my protein. I don't care how I get it.
See, you're just going for the lowest common denominator with the HBEs here, and sometimes you want to have an HBE, sometimes you want to have something with a little bit more finesse.
Yeah, you can do the wrap with the bacon and the cheese.
But here's what I've seen that other people like eggs. Believe it or not, do not have to be consistently refrigerated. Although here in Canada and I guess parts of the United States, we do have refrigerated eggs, right? Because our eggs are washed from the farm and
we have to in this country.
We have to refrigerate, but they really don't have to be. But what I've seen from a lot of other trippers is what they do is they actually crack their eggs and funnel them into a plastic bottle.
Wrong. Horrible idea. That's how you get bacteria, and that's as soon as you crack the egg, that's when the bacteria starts.
Oh.
You do not want to be cracking your eggs into an algae, and I'm sure people have done it and not been sick. Great. You can also eat warm chicken and take your chances. Once you crack the egg, now your bacteria forms very quickly, which is why we bring the egg, the yellow egg cases.
To be clear, we do not do that. Like I said, I saw someone else do it. Now, what we did do on this trip,
I researched it.
What we did do on this trip for the very first time, and we did not like it, and I'm sure we can try a different brand and maybe it will work, is we tried powdered eggs.
Powdered eggs I used to eat powdered eggs on airplanes all the time.
We made powdered eggs. One of my favorite
things was breakfast on an airplane.
We constituted it, and we tried recipes beforehand, and it just never, ever came out good.
No, it somehow came out like a green mushy. We also tried all-season spice. That made it better. We put some onion in it. That made it better. But for the most part,
the texture and the flavor was just...
Yeah, no, not a fan of powdered eggs. For the first 2 days, we bring eggs. We bring the cases. Even if you hard boil them beforehand, even better. Then you don't have to worry about it at all.
What about the
we never thought of that. Actually,
What
Hard
about
boil
the?
them beforehand.
Well, you can do that, but what about the pre-mixed eggs in the carton?
That's what we used to do.
And those are
And then
all,
we would burn the carton.
and they have the
I
carton,
can't find those anymore. Egg creations. I even
right?
did when
But
I
they have
was in
Spanish
advertising.
omelet, and they
I
have
did
all
ads for it. I used to do ads for it, and I haven't
they're
seen it.
delicious.
Yeah, but now they only seem to have egg. I can't find the whole eggs. I can only find like egg whites or whatever. Well, that's why I
Right.
stopped doing it. Also, for the price of those, they're like $10 a carton. It's like you might as well just bring eggs.
There you go.
And the cases don't weigh anything, and they go in the cooler bag, and the cooler bag weighs next to nothing by the third day, anyways.
So,
Right?
so sometimes when you're bringing a lot of just, I guess, regular eggs that are not done yet, we have to have something so they don't break because we're putting them into like a barrel and they can get shuffled around. Do we actually bring?
No, we put the eggs in the cooler bag that we hoist
No,
up the
but
tree.
do we have a plastic safe for the eggs? That's
Yeah, I buy the egg carton
the eggs,
cases.
the camping carton,
The
whatever,
camping cases.
or do you just sort of keep them in their carton and
No,
sort
we
of pray
bring
that
we
they don't
bring
break?
we bring two cases. They go. We have a big cooler bag. They go in the cooler bag.
I guess the big risk is we don't care if we don't eat the eggs if they go bad, but you don't want like
Never had that.
eggs, spoiling all around in your.
No, but what I did was I started putting those cases into a Ziploc, and that's my next tip: Ziploc everything. Because every time you open something, you're not eating the whole thing. Usually, you're wrapping it up with an elastic band, and I always keep elastic bands on me.
And we learned the hard way. Like we will
And
not
you put it in
have
a Ziploc.
like one of the things that I love is one of the nights that we cook. It's spaghetti night, and because I'm you don't know this about me, but I'm actually a professionally trained chef, cordon bleu from Paris, France. No, I'm not. But I do enjoy. I get to make the spaghetti and
You
tomato
cook the
sauce.
spaghetti,
I cook the
the
spaghetti.
one pot spaghetti.
One pot spaghetti. Boil the water. Spaghetti. Drain
Right.
the
Now
water.
put that in your lap with the chinette when you're draining it out there and everything like that.
It would work. But we used to bring
be all over your pants.
a
Is what,
delicious
that you need a tin plate.
organic craft Parmesan cheese.
Okay. This is why we started putting
This
everything
is
in
why
Ziplocs.
this is my story. So
Right.
So there's always the one guy on the trip that says he put stuff away or says he closed it, and it just somehow it opened or somehow it never
In the
was
food
done.
barrel.
In the food barrel.
In the
Nothing.
rain. In the moisture of the rain.
Parmesan
4 days
cheese
of rain.
in rain, in the barrel with the moisture and the bacteria and the smell. It
was
just doesn't get
nasty.
worse. It doesn't get worse. So as a result, we have to have
I before the trip
Plain
have
spaghetti.
boxes of Ziplocs.
without Parmesan
Every
cheese.
food item that I pack in that food barrel, I don't care the paper packaging it's in, whatever, it goes in a Ziploc bag. What? 5 more minutes? All right, yeah, that's what we figured.
Okay. Well, we're gonna
Then
try to.
The other nice thing about Ziploc bags is we will always be pulling. We put them back in. We don't burn these. I just keep throwing them back in the food barrel. And every time we need a Ziploc bag, we have them. This one needs one for this. This one needs one for that.
Ziploc bags solve many problems.
Right, but we also use it for making our fish.
We do.
So it has a second use where we put our fish crisp, all our fish coating batters into the Ziploc. We put all our fillets in it. We shake it up. This year we had pike and pickerel. We had them separated. One guy couldn't eat gluten. We had gluten free for him. We made his first. We made ours in a separate bag. We had Ziplocs for all of this. Those we just like dissolved at the end of the evening in a blazing hot fire that just disintegrated in 0 seconds. I know people are going to get mad, but again, go look at what India and China are doing. It's a drop in the bucket.
You know
All right.
what? And how we accommodate our friends that are gluten free.
You don't think the garbage you get gets incinerated on a daily basis? Of course it does. All right. PVC pipes with caps for fishing rods.
You got to put your fishing rods in something. It's a great tip.
Telescopic fishing rods. Everyone used to bring the big fishing cases.
They still
the
do.
Fishing rods. I hate it. I told everyone to give me their collapsible and their telescopic rods this year. I made them fishing rod holders. They were what, 1.5 feet long. They were nothing in diameter. The caps on them, carabiners on them. I drill a couple of holes to get the caps off. And Bob's your uncle, weigh nothing. We've clipped them all to our backpacks. No fishing rod cases.
It's a simple no-brainer. Like we have to go small. We have to bring small tackle boxes. We have to bring small fishing rods. We'll use the telescopic and the PVC pipe with the caps on it. You put them in when you're not using it. They don't break. So if you're
The reel
counting on
goes in
catching
your
fruit,
bag.
reel goes in the bag. So if you're counting on catching fish to eat dinners, which we do sometimes, which we do all the time, we only bring enough food for on a 9-day trip for 4 or 5 days. We actually have to catch or we're not going to eat.
Now I travel extensively. I go to Mexico. I go to the Caribbean.
comes with you.
Everywhere I've gone, I bring surf rods with me and I check them in at the airport like I would golf bags in PVC pipes
Okay.
with the caps on it. I've been doing it forever. Large PVC. I even take my rods like they're indestructible. I take them all over the world like that.
Great tip.
All right. Next one. If you are traveling with a bunch of people as we do, and you have all the paddles, when you get to the portage, we wrap them all with ball bungees. I love ball bungees. Ball bungees are great for your tarps, wrapping your tent, and especially wrapping your paddles on the portage. One guy carries all the paddles wrapped in the ball bungees. When we get to the other side, we unwrap them. Ball bungees go back on a carabiner on your pack.
Let us know what you guys do with your paddles on long portages. I know a lot of guys like to stick them underneath the cross ribs in the gunnels of the canoe, but
Ball bungee them onto those too.
it all works.
All
Next,
right. Next thing I do is I put loops of rope inside my tent bag.
loops of rope inside your tent bag.
We are in the Canadian Shield, the Great Canadian Shield.
I know where this is going now.
And a lot of the times you cannot peg your tent down.
Yep.
You need to
Rocket.
use rocks. I don't go and scramble and get a rope and cut the rope. I just keep the loops of rope, like as many as go on all the peg areas of my tent, the peg downs. I have loops for every one of them. I never have to. They're just in the bottom of my tent bag, so I bring those
Smart
with
move.
me.
Smart move.
Well, how many times are we camping where we have to use rocks and we are on granite?
You got to count on it. We're in the Canadian Shield. It's all rock.
Right. All right. Next thing, we have zip locks on everything. We talked about that. Loops of rope, locking pins on your barrels with tethers. Love this one.
Why?
I like locking my barrels. That there's no chance of them opening if we tip for animals, nothing.
Okay, so all of our barrels have the lid, and we put on a ring clasp.
Right.
What do you need the locking pin for?
To lock it.
Bears can't figure out the.
Bears can rip right through that. I'm not worried about bears. I'm just worried. I just like locking it.
Okay.
You don't want to lock it? Don't lock it.
Okay.
But when I
It's a
do
tip.
lock it, I use a locking pin and I put it on a tether, which is attached to the clasp. And then I never have to look for that locking pin. I always lock my barrels.
It's even smart when Ronnie brings like my favorite snacks that I'm really not allowed to have, like Pringles, and he puts the locking pin on, and then Adam in the middle of the night wants to go out and sneak some Pringles, and he can't get through the locking. First of all, he got the bear
bear
bells
bells.
and the locking pin. Maybe I'll eat something in the morning.
Right. The other tip that I like to do is place a tarp inside my tent. I will always buy a cheap tarp that I keep with my tent that I unroll and I put it on the inside of the tent as a ground sheet.
So we all know we have to put a footprint down for your tent. So if you're in rocky areas, so you don't rub through
Right.
the tent bottom. But why would you put a tarp on the top of it?
Water. Rain. If anything that goes under my tent, I'm not
Dew?
getting wet. Anything.
You know-
Any condensation, we don't get wet. I put a tarp down. We open up the tent. We set up the tent. I put a tarp down on the inside that fits corner to corner. And then we put down our mattresses and our sleeping bags. I guess it's just because I grew up using ground sheets and I'm used to it. I used to use my poncho, but my poncho now fits in my bag. It's like this big. I don't use it as a tarp. So I bring a small little tarp that rolls up and is the same as I do in the food barrel for
Fantastic.
putting all the supplies or the food so that it's not on the ground. I make sure that I'm not on the ground either. All right. The last two that we're gonna running out of time. When I get home, everyone's like, "What do you do with all your gear, your wet gear?" Luckily, I have a backyard, so the tarps and everything get strung up on lines. But what I do is in my laundry room, I have a dehumidifier. My favorite tip. everything I open up in that laundry room, everything, all my water bottles, all my everything that goes in the dishwasher that gets washed, all the laundry gets laundered. Laundered? That's right.
Laundered.
That's right. Laundered. Right.
Laundered is a good word.
Right. But all my ropes, my everything that my tent, everything that I've taken on that trip, my fishing cases, my tackle boxes, everything
In the
that
room with the dehumidifier.
in the room with the
For how long?
dehumidifier running, I leave it
2
overnight.
days? How much water collects in the reservoir?
I have mine automatically going into the drain, but you will fill that puppy. My sleeping bag, I turn
Unreal.
it inside out. Everything goes into that laundry room with the dehumidifier. I shut the door. Everything is bone dry the
I think
next morning.
that's a great tip. And
After I clean it, I hang all my I hang everything in that laundry room, and it just sucks all the moisture out of everything. My mattresses, and then I put it all away. If you
Wonderful.
can, if you don't have the room for a dehumidifier, that's another story. But if you have the room, get yourself a dehumidifier in the laundry room. You should be hanging most of your laundry and using the dehumidifier anyway. The only thing I ever dry is socks and underwear. Everything else I hang and the dehumidifier does its job.
Wonderful. Love it. Great idea.
And our next tip, and this is one that I've had on, I've posted in groups that got 14,000 shares. I made one post on an Algonquin Park site. It got 14,000 shares. This is a lost tip, a lost form of etiquette, is to leave a pile of firewood for at least one fire on your campsite for the next people. Why? In case they arrive in the middle of the night or during an emergency or wet and hungry, they should always have enough cut firewood for one fire. That is an old school trippers etiquette that has been lost. We learned it at summer camp. Those of us that were trippers at summer camp learned it, have always practiced it. You know, I don't expect you to do it on a paid campsite where you have to buy your wood, but if you are collecting firewood, make sure that you leave enough for people to have one fire after you when they get to the site.
I couldn't agree more. That's a fantastic tip. And generally speaking, when we do arrive at campsites and we've gone through a hellish day of paddling and rain, and when we see that little bit of firewood that's been left to us and a little bit of kindling, we smile because then we can get started making a fire while
Right.
we collect new wood and we cut it. We get get a roaring fire, getting it started, which makes all the difference in the world. And when you're hungry and tired and cold, it's even a survival situation where someone might need to be able to do
You've
that.
tipped canoe and you've arrived, like gone to the shore
I have.
wet and cold, and you need that firewood right away.
You know, I guess for those who don't paddle that often, another tip would be is that if you happen to be on a lake with motorboats and the motorboats go by you, you want to make sure the steersman angles the canoe into the wake and not.
That's paddling techniques.
It's still a tip, because if you do this and you're in a heavy canoe and you're loaded down with gear, you can very easily get swamped and flooded and overturned as we did. And that's the day.
That's not the only time we've overturned. We had a canoe seat break and people ended up in
But
the
that
lake.
wasn't me.
No, but all I'm saying is and if it was cold and raining and like that day, remember, not everyone's doing summer trips. People are doing spring trips. People are doing fall trips. It
Yeah.
can be very cold, the water. You overturn, you need a campfire right away.
100%.
Every campsite, you're on a campsite, leave a pile of wood for the next people. It's not a lot. I mean, I go crazy. I leave people enough that they could stay there for 2 days. That's always been my thing. I truly believe that you can never have enough firewood, but have at least one fire's worth of wood. It's a great etiquette. It's getting lost. We find less and less people are understanding this as we continue tripping, as more and more people are being introduced to the sport or to the adventure of all of it. Always do it. Please do it. It's just a great thing to do.
Agreed.
Great show.
Thank you,
Till
Ronnie.
next time, remember to subscribe.
Like and
and
follow.
More shows coming. See you later.